You ever have one of those days where the air feels too still, like the universe is holding its breath for something awful to happen? That was my wedding day. Now, don't get me wrong, the sky was blue, the flowers were white, and the photographer kept calling us the most radiant couple he'd shot all year. But something in my gut? Off. Like milk that's just about to go bad, but not enough to make you pour it out. Her name was Rachel, my fiancée, now ex-wife. But don't let me get ahead of myself. At that point, she was still the woman I'd memorized like scripture, right down to the nervous habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when she lied. So when she stood there at the reception, clinking her glass for attention, I felt it. That nervous flick. The ear tuck. And I knew. It was subtle. Not the kind of thing you yell, objection, about. No, it was the kind of detail you register a split second before your life derails like a late-night train. We just made it through the vows. Barely. She said, I do, like someone reading off a menu. I chalked it up to nerves. She always hated public speaking. Then came the toast. Rachel raised her champagne, flashed that crowd-pleasing smile I used to believe in, and said, to honesty, to starting fresh, and to finding love, even when it surprises you. Polite laughter. Her sister hooped. The DJ cued soft music like it was some Hallmark moment. Only I caught the glance. That half-second flick of her eyes toward the best man. My best man, Jake. If you've ever been gut-punched while wearing a tuxedo, I don't recommend it. Because there I was, holding a flute of Prosecco and a bouquet of lies, and she was staring at him like they shared a secret I wasn't invited to. I smiled anyway. Because men don't cry at their weddings. And they sure as hell don't throw cake at the best man before dessert is served. Instead, I leaned in and whispered, cute toast. What were we drinking to again? She blinked. Guilty. Caught. But slick. To us. To us. Right. That night, the party raged. Speeches were made. My uncle danced like arthritis didn't exist. But in the quiet spaces between, I watched them. The too casual laughter. The glances that lingered half a second too long. The way Jake touched her back when he thought no one noticed. But I noticed. I always notice. So I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. I waited. Patiently. Like a snake with a calendar. Because if you want revenge, real revenge, the kind that doesn't just hurt but haunts, you don't storm the castle. You study the blueprint. People think betrayal hits like a slap, loud, jarring, unmistakable. But no, it's quieter than that. Like a whisper you almost miss. Like walking barefoot across the floor and stepping on glass so fine, you don't feel it until you're bleeding. The night after the wedding, Rachel fell asleep with her mascara still on. I lay next to her, staring at the ceiling fan, counting every slow rotation like it was ticking off the last seconds of my old life. I'd been loyal. Boringly loyal, even. The kind of guy who clears the lint trap in the dryer without being asked. And Jake? Jake was my best friend. College roommate. The guy who once bailed me out of a broken-down car situation at 2 a.m. in February. He was practically family. I used to say he was the brother I never had. Well, apparently he'd been auditioning for the role of husband, too. I started noticing things. Little things. A text from Jake that said, don't worry, she doesn't suspect anything. Followed by a second text, crap, wrong mark. He tried to play it off. Dude, I meant to send that to my mechanic. Long story. Yeah, must be some mechanic. Then there was Rachel's gym bag. She said she was taking bar classes. But the only thing bar about her routine was how she was bar ly hiding the truth anymore. Her water bottle smelled like whiskey. And there were cologne traces on her hoodie that didn't belong to me or her. Who's been borrowing your sweater? I asked one night, tossing it casually onto the kitchen counter. Oh, that? Just must have brushed against someone on the subway. She didn't even blink. Subway. Right. Funny how that someone wore the exact brand Jake used to drench himself in before dates. Now, I could have lost it right there. But no. I smiled. Kissed her on the cheek. You know what? I said, let's take a trip. You and me. Somewhere quiet. She lit up. Of course she did. Guilt makes people agreeable. We need this, she said, hugging me tighter than she had in weeks. And that's how I knew she was still hiding something. Because when a guilty person agrees too fast, they're not planning for a trip. They're praying it won't be a trap. So I planned it. A cozy weekend at a lakeside cabin. No cell reception. No distractions. Just me, her, and a plan I was building one breadcrumb at a time. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was focused. Focused like a man sharpening a blade. Not to cut, but to carve. Because the best revenge? It doesn't scream. It waits. The cabin sat nestled between two pines like it was hiding from something. Fitting, considering I was, too. Just a man, his wife, and a weekend getaway neither of us would ever forget. We arrived Friday afternoon. Rachel wore that oversized sweater she always pretended she didn't steal from me. It still had my initials stitched near the hem, though lately it felt like she wore it more out of obligation than affection, like she was cosplaying the role of happy wife. "Wow," she said, stepping inside. "It's cute, cute. Like a kitten, like a lie dressed in flannel." I smiled. "Yeah, real cozy. No Wi-Fi, no service, just us." She laughed nervously, brushing her hair behind her ear again. There it was, that twitch. Her lie detector. We spent the first evening cooking pasta, sipping red wine, and pretending nothing was broken. She asked me what I was thinking about. "You," I said. "Us." And I meant it. I was thinking about how someone could look you in the eye and say "I love you," while their heart was renting space somewhere else. I was thinking about how Jake had once told me, if I ever had what you two have, I'd never risk it. Turns out, he just meant he hadn't had it yet. We played Scrabble that night. She laid down the word affair and laughed. "That's not too dark, right?" she asked. I looked at her tiles. She had affair, blame, and guilt sitting in her tray. "I mean, unless you're trying to confess something," I said with a half smile. She blinked. Too long. The kind of pause people take when their brain hits "oh no" and scrambles for a believable exit. "I'm just playing the board," she said. I nodded. "Sure." That night, while she slept, I opened her phone. I know, I shouldn't have, but I had to see it. The truth, naked and ugly. She had a folder in her photo app called Miscellaneous. Inside were selfies. Not just hers. His, too. Jake. On our couch. In our backyard. One from my birthday, of all days. Him holding up a slice of cake with a sticky note that read, "She says hi." I sat there, phone in hand, heart not broken, but rewired. Like my body realized I wasn't grieving anymore. I was planning. I forwarded every photo to my email. Then I found her notes app. She had a whole journal of their conversations. Sweet nothings and hotel addresses. One note titled, "Things I wish Mark knew but will never say out loud." I read every word. She missed the thrill. She loved two people. She thought I was too predictable. And this one got me. Jake gets me. Mark provides for me. You ever feel like a side character in your own story? Yeah, that was me. Until now. Because the thing is, Rachel and Jake thought they were getting away with something. But all they'd really done was give me a script. And I was about to direct the final scene. There's something eerie about morning silence at the lake. The way the water holds its breath. The way the mist clings to the surface like it's hiding secrets. That Saturday, it matched the mood perfectly. Rachel was already up, humming in the kitchen. Like it was a normal day. Like we were still the couple that shared jokes and matching mugs. She handed me a cup of coffee with a smile that didn't quite make it to her eyes. "Sleep okay?" she asked. "I always sleep well when I'm next to you," I said. She smiled wider. I think that's when it hit her, something was off. I hadn't said something like that in weeks. Maybe months. The sudden warmth was suspicious. She was smart enough to pick up on patterns. Just not smart enough to stop breaking them. "I was thinking," I said, sipping slowly. "Maybe after breakfast, we take a little hike. Just the two of us. Clear our heads." Her nod was automatic. "Yeah, sounds nice." She had no idea I'd already cleared mine. No more second-guessing. No more holding out hope that maybe I misread the signs. I wasn't here for closure. I was here for control. The backpack I brought wasn't for hiking. It held a copy of the photos, a burner phone, and a small black journal I'd been writing in since the wedding. Not for therapy. For strategy. Jake had always been careless with passwords. Back in college, his favorite was always the same, Diesel 85. His truck, his ego, his graduation year. I guessed it on the third try. That's how I got into his email the week before we left for the cabin. Turns out, Jake liked to write love letters. Not the Shakespearean kind. The kind that detailed everything from how she looked in the rearview mirror to how I'd never suspect a thing. Classic Jake. All biceps and no foresight. I printed them. I printed everything. And then I waited. Now, you might be thinking, why not confront them? Why not just throw it all on the table and walk out like a martyr? But see, there's no poetry in that. No balance. No lesson. I wanted them to feel it. The weight. The burn of shame simmering in private. The dread of knowing someone's outsmarted you. And worse, you don't know how or when it'll land. That morning, as we set off into the woods, I let Rachel lead the way. You remember this trail? She asked, smiling over her shoulder. I did. We came here 2 summers ago. That trip where she pretended to twist her ankle, and I carried her the last half-mile. Where we lay in the grass and talked about baby names like it was a real possibility. Turns out, she wasn't thinking about names. Just exits. Still glad we did this trip, I said. Yeah, she replied. It's been good. Good. There it was again. That safe little word she used when she didn't want to commit to anything real. We reached a clearing near a rock ledge that overlooked the lake. She leaned against the railing, arms crossed, breathing in the view. I stood next to her, close enough to feel the warmth coming off her, and yet it felt like standing next to a stranger in line at the DMV. Close, but utterly disconnected. Rachel, I said, pulling the journal from my pack. There's something I've been meaning to share. She glanced down at the notebook. What's that? A little collection. Things I've learned lately. She laughed, nervous, not amused. Okay. I opened it to the first page. Read aloud. Jake gets me. Mark provides for me. Her body stiffened. She looked at the notebook. Then at me. You went through my phone? I went through the lies, I said. They were getting in the way. She opened her mouth. Closed it again. Why didn't you say anything? She whispered. Because I needed you to feel safe, I said calmly. People speak more freely when they think they're winning. Her jaw clenched. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. No, I agreed. You probably hoped you could juggle the best of both worlds until you figured out which one to keep. Rachel stepped back. Her eyes darted around like she was calculating the distance back to the car. You're not going to hurt me, she said flatly. A statement. A test. No, I replied. But I am going to teach you something. She frowned. Teach me what? I reached into my bag again and pulled out the burner phone. Handed it to her. What is this? A gift. Jake's emails. Your texts. Screenshots. Voice memos. Calendar entries. The whole highlight reel. She stared at the device like it had started ticking. I don't want this, she said. You don't have a choice. Her voice hardened. So what? This is blackmail? No, I said. This is documentation. For your parents. For your boss. For our mutual friends. For Jake's girlfriend, if he ever gets brave enough to call her that. All in one file. Scheduled to send in 30 days. Her face drained of color. You wouldn't. I would, I said. Unless, of course, you meet 3 conditions. She said nothing. Just stared. Silent fury behind her eyes. 1, I said, you end it with Jake. Clean. Cold. No contact. I want a photo of the message. 2, you move out. I'll keep the house. You get to keep your reputation for now. And 3, when people ask why we split, you'll tell them it was your decision, that you had to go find yourself. I don't need pity. I just need the exit to look clean. Rachel swallowed hard. You've thought this through. I smiled. You always said I was predictable. Turns out, I'm not. She stared at the lake for a long time. Then she took the phone and slid it into her jacket. 30 days. I nodded. Tick-tock. We walked back in silence. Not like a couple. Not even like enemies. Like 2 people who had finally, and fully, stopped pretending. She didn't speak the entire way back. Not in the woods. Not when we passed the rotted sign that still said, Lover's Trail, in faded red. Not even when the cabin came back into view through the thinning trees like a crime scene we both agreed never to talk about. She just walked 2 steps ahead of me, her spine a little too straight, her arms locked around that burner phone like it might bite her if she dropped it. And me? I wasn't angry. I was relaxed, almost relieved. Because silence, for once, felt honest. Inside the cabin, she made tea. That's what she does when she's panicking. Rachel likes rituals, things she can stir, fold, measure. It gives her the illusion of control. I let her steep whatever blend she needed. I had nothing left to steep. No bitterness, no sorrow. Just resolve. She finally broke the quiet. I want to talk about this, she said, carefully. I nodded. Sure. Not here. When we get back home. I let the word home hang in the air. It sounded foreign now, like an old vacation spot we outgrew and never admitted to. She sat down across from me, blowing on her mug like it was the most urgent thing in the room. Then she glanced at the phone again. Is it really set to send? She asked. Scheduled and encrypted, I said. 30 days. Unless you give me a reason to cancel. She nodded slowly, and for a second, I saw a flicker of something familiar. The version of her from before. Before Jake. Before the ear tucks and the late nights and the perfume she only wore when she wasn't with me. "You really want me gone?" she asked, voice low. "No," I said honestly. "I just want my life back." She looked up, startled. Maybe she thought I'd say something cruel. Something righteous. But I was past cruelty. I was into clarity. "You could have just divorced me," she said. "And you could have just not slept with my best man." That shut the conversation down. She left the room. The tea sat there steaming like it was waiting for her to come back and apologize. She didn't. We left the cabin the next morning. The car ride home was quiet except for the occasional buzz of her real phone in the cup holder. Jake, I imagined. Probably wondering why she'd gone dark. Probably wondering if the plan was still on. Oh, Jake. You absolute imbecile. If Rachel was a fire, Jake was a moth with matches in both hands. When we got home, she went straight to the guest room. I didn't ask. Over the next few days, things changed in ways only we could notice. Her toothbrush moved to the other bathroom. She stopped making breakfast for two. The laundry started appearing in separate baskets. The marriage wasn't dissolving. It was being dissected. Clean, quiet, methodical. I checked the burner phone every night. Nothing had been touched. Good. Then, day 5, she texted him. The message was simple. "We can't see each other anymore. Don't call me." Attached was a photo. Her hand, holding up a torn piece of paper with the words, "It's over." I didn't smile when I saw it. Just nodded. One box checked. The next week, she started packing. Slowly. Neatly. Like someone leaving a hotel they stayed in too long. She didn't ask for help. She didn't ask what I was telling people. She knew. I made sure of it. By day 12, she moved into a furnished sublet 2 neighborhoods away. Close enough to feel the sting. Far enough to stop thinking of it as ours. I canceled the scheduled message. But not the backup copy. I kept that. Printed. Stored. Safe. She started posting vague little quotes on social media. Sometimes love means letting go. New chapters aren't betrayals, they're survival. And everyone ate it up. Her friends called her brave. Her mother said I'd always been too emotionally distant anyway. One of her coworkers offered to slash my tires with no questions asked. That part made me laugh. It was fascinating, really. The way people rewrite history when you hand them a blank page. Rachel didn't tell them the truth. She told them her truth. That's fine. I had mine. Around day 23, I ran into Jake. At a hardware store, of all places. He was in the paint aisle, holding a brochure for warm neutrals. I swear to God, I almost laughed. He looked surprised to see me. "Mark," he said, a little too casual. "Jake," I replied. "Didn't know you were the accent wall type?" He chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, well, gotta redecorate, right?" "Right." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable for me. It was his problem. He shuffled his feet, then cleared his throat like he was about to confess to a priest. "I haven't heard from Rachel," he said. "Yeah," I said. "That tends to happen when people grow up." He blinked. "Did something happen?" I stepped closer, voice low. "She chose peace, Jake. You wouldn't know much about that." He swallowed hard. "Look, I never meant for it to go that far." "Oh, I know," I said. "You meant for it to go just far enough." He didn't answer. I walked past him, turned back once. "Oh, and if any pictures of you two ever leak, just know it wasn't me. Could be anyone. Could be a cloud sync issue. Tech is weird like that." Then I left, and in the reflection of the sliding glass door, I saw his face fall. Like someone who just realized the fall from grace doesn't come with a warning. Back at home, Rachel's absence was loud at first, but then it turned into peace. The dishes stayed clean. The lights got turned off at night. The silence didn't need interpreting. One morning, I stood in the kitchen, making coffee, and realized I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. Not an explanation. Not an apology. Not even revenge. I'd already had my revenge. Not the theatrical kind. Not the scorched earth meltdown people expect from a man scorned. No, mine was precise. Subtle. Controlled. The kind that lets them walk away thinking they've won, until they realize they're not even playing the same game anymore. The strange thing about watching someone unravel is how quiet it is. No explosions. No public meltdowns. No screaming voicemails at 3 a.m. with mascara-stained apologies. Just silence. And then the slow, steady ticking of a life they thought they controlled slipping out of rhythm. Rachel had moved out, sure, but she hadn't moved on. Not the way she expected to. Not the way Jake had whispered to her between stolen moments. We'll build something real. Just wait. Turns out, Jake wasn't much of a builder. More of a demo guy, if you catch my drift. She started testing the waters again about 3 weeks after she moved out. A text here. Just checking in there. Never the full dive. More like dipping a toe into a pool she swore she drained. Hope you're okay, she wrote once. No punctuation. Just enough warmth to look caring. Just enough distance to keep her pride. I didn't respond. Because this wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about letting her twist quietly in the winds of her own decisions. And twist she did. Word started spreading. You see, the thing about scorched earth betrayals is they leave footprints. Even when you're wearing your best heels and smiling for Instagram. People notice the smoke. Especially the people who matter. Her job? Well, they didn't fire her. But they sure did reassign her. Lower-tier clients. Less FaceTime. Fewer conferences. Funny how you can go from rising star to optional presence in the span of a rumor and a poorly timed business lunch. That was Jake's doing. He got sloppy. Apparently, he'd shown someone, probably trying to brag, flex his conquest like a high school trophy. Word got around that Rachel had been engaged in something unprofessional with a man who wasn't her husband during a project trip that was supposed to be all about synergy and market reach. What can I say? Karma has incredible aim when you just stand still and let it work. Then there was her family. Now, Rachel had always been her mother's golden child. Perfect GPA, perfect hair, perfect fiancé. I'd passed every background check her parents threw at me, literal and emotional. But one Sunday morning, her dad called me. Mark, he said, I need to ask something, and I want the truth. There was no anger in his voice. Just that tired, heavy-toned men get when they've already done the math and don't like the answer. I told him everything. Calm. Clean. Not a single cruel word. I didn't need to twist the knife. Rachel already had. When I was done, he was silent. She told us you had grown cold, he finally said. Said she didn't feel seen. She didn't, I replied. She felt watched, but only when she thought no one else was watching. Another pause. Well, he muttered. That's not what we were expecting to hear. I know, I said. Wasn't what I expected to live through either. He didn't defend her. Didn't try to rationalize it. He just sighed and hung up. I never heard from them again. Jake? He didn't last. Whatever romantic fantasy Rachel had about rebuilding their lives from the ashes of our marriage. That blew away fast. According to a mutual friend, Kendra, someone with a talent for information and zero filter, Jake ghosted her within 2 weeks of her moving out. He said she got clingy, Kendra told me over coffee one afternoon. Said she started talking about apartments and merging Spotify accounts. I raised an eyebrow. Spotify? Yeah, she laughed. Apparently, that was his line. Once someone tries to sync playlists, he bolts. Charming. I didn't comment. Just stirred my coffee and let the silence say more than words could. Kendra leaned forward. You know she's still talking about you, right? Let her. She says she never really got closure. I sipped slowly. That's because I never wrote her a script. A few days later, I got a letter. An actual letter. Envelope, stamp, the whole deal. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was Rachel. 6 pages, handwritten in blue ink. The kind she used when she wanted to appear vulnerable but in control. I read it once. She called the affair a moment of weakness. She called Jake a mistake that got louder with attention. She called me the best thing she ever had. I didn't respond. I didn't even keep the letter. I shredded it, fed the pieces into my fireplace, and watched the paper curl into ash. I wasn't being cruel. I was being consistent. She had her 30 days. She made her choices. And now she had to live in the space where consequences echo louder than apologies. What she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I was doing just fine. Better than fine, actually. I had moved back into my old rhythm. Not the one she called predictable, but the one I called peace. No more guessing games. No more second-guessing my own worth. The house was cleaner. The fridge had only what I liked. The Spotify playlist was mine, uncensed, unfiltered. I even started seeing someone. Not serious. Not a rebound. Just human connection, untainted by deceit. She doesn't ask questions about Rachel. And I don't offer details. Because the chapter's closed. Locked. Filed under cautionary tale. And when I look back on it now, I don't see a tragedy. I see a man who learned the difference between losing a person and losing yourself. And I never lost me. Not really. I was just waiting to return. You'd think once the smoke clears, people would stop looking for fire. But no, when a marriage ends quietly, the audience gets restless. People crave drama, even if they weren't invited to the explosion. Co-workers, old friends, baristas who remembered our orders, they all started asking in soft tones, "Hey, what happened between you and Rachel?" Like we were a celebrity couple who owed them closure. I gave them the same answer every time. It just wasn't working anymore. Simple, clean, devoid of drama. It drove her nuts. See, Rachel had built a social life on the illusion of perfect partnership. The filtered couple selfies, the captions like, "He still gives me butterflies, yellow heart," and the annual Christmas card we never agreed to but always mailed anyway. Now, with me gone and Jake nowhere in sight, she had to repaint her narrative. And she tried. Oh, she tried. Suddenly, she was reclaiming her independence. Posting yoga photos with long captions about healing energy and growing from the ashes. I half expected her to start quoting Rumi. She needed the world to believe she was the phoenix, not the arsonist. The apology came around day 52, right after I posted a photo from a hiking trip. Just me, some misty cliffs, and a caption that said, "Nothing left to carry but peace." She called me that night. I let it go to voicemail. "Hey, Mark. I saw your post. You look good. Look, I know I've said some things, but I was hoping we could talk. I owe you more than silence." You ever hear someone sound like they're trying to talk from the bottom of a well they jumped into? That was her voice. The irony was, this time, I didn't feel angry, or even bitter. I felt detached, like I was listening to someone else's story entirely. I didn't save the voicemail. I didn't need another souvenir. A week later, she showed up, unannounced, uninvited, standing at my door in a coat too thin for the weather, holding a box of things she apparently just found. "I figured you might want these back," she said. Inside the box, a sweater I thought I lost, my copy of The Alchemist, and a photo of us at a wedding years ago. She must have found it buried in her things. We looked young, stupidly happy. "Do you?" she asked. I looked at the photo, then at her. "No," I said. She nodded. "Thought so." She lingered, waiting for something, anything. But I wasn't giving it to her. So she gave me something instead. "You were always better than I deserved," she said, eyes wet, smile bitter. I just didn't know how to love something that stable. I kept looking for earthquakes. I nodded once. "Then you should have moved to fault lines, not married the foundation." You want to know what poetic justice looks like? 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a message from Jake. Subject line: "Need to clear the air." I clicked it out of morbid curiosity. The email was long, rambling, and smelled of whiskey and regret. The kind of message you write at 2 a.m. when your loneliness starts wearing your confidence like a cheap Halloween mask. He admitted everything. The texts, the hotel nights, the manipulation. He even said he wasn't in love with Rachel, just bored with his own life, and wanted to prove he could take something sacred and still be adored. "I lost a brother over my own insecurity," he wrote. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? "Thanks for the confession, redemption denied"? No. Sometimes the best response is none at all. Silence is louder when it comes from someone you once took for granted. And silence is what he got. So here's how it all ended, not with flames, not with fury, but with stillness. Rachel faded into the background of her own story. Her Instagram stopped trying so hard. Her social circles got smaller. Her name came up less and less. She became a cautionary tale told in subtle glances and whispered, "You didn't hear it from me." But Jake moved to a different city, started a new job, probably found someone new to orbit until he burned her, too. And me? I rebuilt. I traveled, took up woodworking, taught myself to make coffee that didn't taste like compromise. I met someone, eventually, quietly. No grand gestures, no fireworks, just 2 people showing up, without lies, without ghosts. And here's the truth I didn't expect. I'm not angry anymore. Because the cleanest revenge isn't exposing someone. It's not dragging them through the mud or broadcasting the betrayal. It's living a life so peaceful, so grounded, that they can't spin a single story where they come out ahead. I wasn't the victim in her story. I was the ending she didn't see coming. And that was the point.